But I want to talk about Jaime Munguia and getting a unanimous decision against Gabe Rosado. Man, I'll get into Munguia in a second, but I got to give it up to this guy, Gabe Rosado, man. He's fought like 3, 4 generations of prospects now. You know, prospects and contenders. And he always puts up a fucking hell of a fight, man. He just always puts up a good fight, man. Win, lose, or draw. A lot of times lose. But, he's always fighting top-level guys, and he's always giving them good fights. And this was just another example of that, man. I mean, Munguia showed some of the same defensive holes that he's always shown. He's very hittable. He's definitely very hittable. But his offensive output is so much to deal with that, unless you're a defensive wizard and you can just make him look silly, which that's not really Gabe's thing. Gabe's a good defensive fighter, but he's not a Arislandi Lara or that kind of fighter. Like I said, Munguia's offensive output is just so much to handle, and he throws his punches well. I think with Morales, his technique is tightened up, at least on offense. He's a little bit better defensively than he was a few years ago, but he still gets his head snapped back. And I think also Rosado's just a really good fighter. He's just a tough fucking guy, and he just caught him clean because he knows how to set his shots up. And what we saw was that Munguia can take that power from a guy who's fought at 168 and just knocked out a huge prospect. He can take that power and he can handle that pressure. Because what I thought was cool was I felt like the fight was not 50-50, but I felt like it was 60-40 for Munguia, like through the first 8 rounds. And then I felt like, the tail end of the fight, Munguia kind of pulled away and separated himself a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And I was impressed, with how he maintained his composure, even as Rosado would catch him with huge shots. I just thought in general, his composure under Rosado's pressure, particularly down the back half of the fight, was really impressive. He maintained his game plan, and I think by the end of the fight, he was really landing almost all of the meaningful shots of the last 3 or 4 rounds. I really would love to see this kid against Golovkin. I feel like he's had some fights against some contenders of a certain level, like, he's fought Liam Smith. Now he's fought Rosado. Who's the other guy? Toriano Johnson's a decent fighter. That's a guy he's fought. So he's fought some contenders at this point, and I would like to see him against Golovkin. I think this kid is really entertaining. He's got a great offensive output, but he's also honestly kind of vulnerable to getting hit. And so you have to wonder how long he can sustain that against Triple G. You know what I'm saying? I think a fight with him and Andrade would be good. And I think at this point, having seen a couple of years ago, I would have said Andrade 100%. But I think at this point, I thought Andrade's last performance was not anything special. And I think that this kid, if you're not going to be special, is just going to overwhelm you with volume and pressure. You know what I'm saying? I think the sky's the limit. You're 25 years old. You're 38-0 with 30 knockouts. Like, he's got a fuck ton of experience. He's got almost as much experience as Canelo did at this age. You know what I mean? As far as number of fights, not quality of fights. Let me also correct that. Number of fights. So, yeah, I think he's ready for an elite level fight, and I think particularly if Golovkin is able to beat Murata, and the timing of that makes sense, I think they should put that fight together. I think it's a really good matchup. They're both with DAZN. It makes sense. Also I know Andrade is going to fight pretty soon as well, so maybe it makes sense to wait for the. I would like to see Andrade get a fight against one of these elite level guys at some point. Like, I know that his And I was critical of his last performance, and honestly, even the one before it didn't wow me. But the guy's just been with a belt and at the top for so long that it's just like, somebody's got to fight this fucking guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the Dillian White being a mandatory for 5 years or whatever. It's like, I know, but like, somebody's got to fight this fucking guy. Somebody's got to fight this guy. Somebody at the top has to fight this guy. So maybe it's Munguia. I think Andrade, Munguia, Golovkin, and Charlo should all be mixing it up right now. It's unfortunate that that's not really how boxing works, and you have to wait for these big fights to be, you know, as big as they can possibly be. It's almost like you can only make mid-level fights, or you can make the biggest fights, but you can't make just like really good fights. As far as those are all great matchups, but financially, they're not great. You know what I mean? And those seem to be the only kind of fights you can fucking make.